We're now in our section on the Civil War, the most divisive war in our nation's history, the war that threatened to break our country apart. And we're standing in front of images of Abraham Lincoln and Jefferson Davis, the leaders of the North and the South. You know, a lot of people say, well, it was inevitable that the North was going to win the Civil War. They were larger, they had all the industry, they had all the money, but that's really not true. All the South had to do was not lose. The North had to win. And remember that the United States, when it was colonies, prevailed and won its independence against a far larger power, Great Britain. So this section of the exhibit traces major moments in the Civil War and how the North ultimately prevailed and kept the nation together. One of the really wonderful, surprising, and odd objects that we have in this exhibition is a stuffed horse from the Civil War. Actually, this horse actually rode in the Civil War. It belonged to Phil Sheridan, a Union cavalry officer. It was originally named Rienzi, but he rode it in a famous battle at Winchester and renamed the horse Winchester because of his victory there. It came to the Smithsonian in 1922. It had been taxidermied and saved by veterans up in New York, and we have it on display here. Now, we at the Smithsonian have some true national treasures, and then we have the chairs that Lee and Grant sat in at that home at Appomattox when they sat down to negotiate the basic terms of the peace. World War II is in some ways the most important conflict of American history of the recent centuries. World War II, had the outcome been different, would have changed the world fundamentally. American involvement in World War II turned the tide towards victory for the Allies. And this section of the exhibit tells that story, from the rise of Axis powers and fascism in Europe through the battle in the Atlantic and in North Africa, winning the war in Europe, and then winning the war in the Pacific. This barracks is a setting that the Smithsonian has actually used in several exhibitions, but we reproduced it here in Price of Freedom because it symbolizes the story of how ordinary civilians with lots of different personalities become soldiers. And people will come and say, you know, the war has changed, but the barracks remain the same. The Korean War is often referred to as the forgotten war in American history, particularly by veterans who fought there and feel like Americans just don't even know that they were there. We do have a section on the Korean War in the exhibition because it's really important. And I will tell you that if you go to Korea, South Korea, they remember this war in ways many Americans don't, because their freedom was totally dependent on American involvement in Korea. And the fact that South Korea has become such a prosperous country as compared to North Korea is totally an outcome of our involvement in it.